going to mean another 10-15 minutes of map control, and they're very good at setting that framework like right immediately after the lane start or when the lanes start to rotate around a little bit. So I think they're going to play differently and ban differently on each side.
Okay, Dakota, what about you? Do you think there's any other heroes that really come to mind when you think about C-Deck that EG perhaps has prepared against them?
The only thing I can think of is if EG feels C-Deck is worthy enough, or if they value enough getting this win, that maybe they entice or bait out C-Deck to pick something that they are comfortable with, and that's when they pull something out, similar to what they did against Fiji Gaming with the FY Bounty Hunter. Maybe they throw out there the Lesh, or they do give them the Gyro and risk taking that head on with something they might have been able to formulate, outside of the TI. So I'm not too sure, to be honest. It just comes down to how much EG have prepared for this kind of matchup, because C-Deck, once they build up that kind of momentum, if they get something like a Gyro, they make that 7-minute gank happen, they end up being successful. It's very hard to take that back away from them. They will hold on to that advantage and not look to let go.
Yeah. Now, of course, EG, like you mentioned, a lot of times they are known this week in TI to be giving up a lot of these strong heroes and just say, all right, we have a counter prepared, or we want to try this maybe, see how it pans out. But overall, it doesn't seem to have met the level of success they probably wanted it to, nor their fans. Do you think now, when it's now fighting for that first seed, do you think it's important for them to just say, all right, we'll just go with whatever's most stable? Maybe that's a switch that they need, because they're always too dynamic about their drafting. What do you guys think about that option?
For EG?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how much they care about the current group standings, but even if they win 2-0, they're not safe. That's
true.
The thing. So the question is, if you look at it as like a gamble and whether you want to quote unquote burn a strat, I would agree probably taking the stable approach here, because ultimately whether or not you get first place is actually now out of your hands. You can win the 2-0 against C-Deck, but if they win their other match 2-0, you're still second.
Right.
Now, if you win 2-0, you force them to win, because then a draw is not enough for them. So if they tie you still win on head-to-head. And, of course, in addition, you want to show that you're strong, right? So, of course, you want to go for the wins. I would say it's unlikely to see something very funky for EG here, because the actual value of winning this series might be nothing, right? It could be. So I would agree. Stable here. As far as going further in the tournament, I think it's really good that they're being funky with their draft. It's the way they've historically won a lot of tournaments by catching their opponents off guard. It's great to have aces up your sleeve, but the question is, how many aces do you have in the deck? You might want to save them for the main event.
That's a good way to put it. Ben, on the flip side, EG does have a lot of niche picks. Do any of these directly go against what C-Deck wants to play, so that C-Deck maybe has to ban these out on the other side?
I'm not sure how effective Clinks will be. I think that's one that they turn to a fair amount. Clinks is good at punishing greedy teams, and I don't view C-Deck as a greedy team at all. I think they have, the typical group around together and a very tightly knit chemistry and teamwork, and that's not very easily punishable by a Clinks. So I think they should shy away from that. I did not like their triple invis strategy, the Clinks, Bounty Hunter, plus Treant Protector. I also think that's probably a no-go for them. Aside from that, it's just a standard, and of course they need to be flexible as the draft goes on. It's a 2-game series, so even if they drop one, they still get a good feel out for their opponent. And this is an opponent, again, they have not faced. And EG in Group B hasn't faced many of their opponents, and this is why they're not undefeated, I feel like. They take time to adapt, to grow, to learn from their opponents and learn from their mistakes. And if they drop game 1, I'm very confident in them in game number 2. But it's just a matter of how generic of a strat. It's generally like a Naga plus something safe, maybe an anti-mage to delay the game, maybe a Darkseer for the combo plus holding the high ground. These are the stable strats that I'm looking for EG to run.
Yeah, and now let's talk a little bit bigger picture going forward. As we wait for these teams to prepare for their match, Dakota, one thing we discussed briefly yesterday was, all right, so if you're in the top 2 of Group B, no matter which team comes out on top, would you, maybe it does depend, of course, which team you are, EG or C-Deck, but would you rather play against Complexity or C9, right? Because if you're EG, maybe C9 better, maybe, or at the same time you just don't like that matchup because C9 games can go very long and you're not sure how that always ends up. But Complexity, a little bit of a wild horse coming in.
Yeah, that's actually hard to say, especially with Complexity being able to 2-0 C9 today. I don't know how much value a team like C-Deck or EG look into that. I want to say a team like EG might just go forward with Complexity. Just maybe it's a team they're probably used to scrimming against a bit. I don't know if they've given Complexity the leash of screaming with them a whole lot, but it's probably something they're going to be a lot more comfortable with going into. seeing what they expect. Complexity seem to be very good at adapting to what teams like EG and Secret pull out. So maybe EG feel like they're going to be one step ahead with that kind of game plan, and would rather expect to see something that they'll be familiar with than the unexpected.
Who would CDEC rather pick, though?
I don't know.
Because they're far more likely to get first, I feel like.
Yeah.
Just winning one of the 4 games. Or
it's really difficult. I think one of Cloud9's strengths going into a tournament is how volatile they are. It can be great and it can be bad, but it makes them a very unattractive pick for this kind of situation where you could be like, is that good or bad for them in this situation? Maybe they would rather meet CDEC, right? But CDEC are like, we actually don't want to play Cloud9, and they end up against one of their, I don't know what the plural of nemesis is. Nemesi? Did you say that? I don't know. Now you do.
I actually don't know. Good question.
You end up against EG, and generally EG and Secret are the 2 teams that Cloud9 tend to struggle the most against. And, well, if I personally think, regardless of who gets first in Group B, they will not pick Cloud9 just because of that. Like, it's too risky. They have, like, these explosive strats. They 60-0 IG. That kind of speaks for itself. They're extremely good, and they can be, like, day and night. So you never know what you're going to get. Whereas with Complexity, it feels a lot more stable. They have some different picks, but if you do your homework, you probably know the kind of strategy you're going against.
All right. Yeah. I mean, just some interesting questions to think about. And I do believe there is still a possibility that EG doesn't finish. If they lose in this one and some other results happen, they may not even end up in the top 2. And at this point, I'm just saying some other results happen. We'll look at the notebook of all answers here.
I mean, it's just for sure they could take number 1 if they obviously do beat CDEC 2-0. And then CDEC just at most tie with E home, which I think we already discussed. I remember reading up there is a possibility for EG to get down the lower bracket. I don't know if that circumstances
to lower bracket.
No, there was starting today.
Okay.
Like it might have already been thwarted with the results that have already happened.
Oh, at the start, I do believe
at the start.
Yeah.
So, but that might have changed.
I think they can still go down below second seed.
Yeah,
though.
and that's actually that's really important to keep in mind, because then all of a sudden there's a lot more on the line for this game than I said originally, where it's just like, you could beat CDEC, but you might still not get first, so how much is really on the line? But if there's a risk of you dropping down to third, you would probably meet Secret in the first round, because LGD would not pick you. So that is a very unattractive matchup, I think, for the first round, the winner bracket for EG. So with that in mind, I do believe a draw is enough to secure them top 2.
I think you have
100%.
to lose to CDEC to have that risk happen.
Yes, they would definitely be at least looking for the draw then. And that could mean that should they lose their first game, they might burn a strat in the second one, because they're like, it's actually really important we don't meet Secret round 1 of the winners bracket. So. On the other hand, they have really good experience, or they have a lot of experience playing against Secret. I think they've lost the last few matchups, but they've beaten them historically. I think PPD is the kind of captain who goes into every matchup with confidence. He does his homework, and he's like, if we're going to win the tournament, we need to beat every team, right?
That's very true.
In a way. So maybe you could just start out with a hard matchup against Secret.
Yeah,
because they don't aim for top 6. Like, that's not the level of ambition for EG. That's all the way. They want to go first.
Yeah, so if you're going to have to face them, maybe just try facing them there, and if you win, that's done and done. Go on maybe all the way to the final for EG. And all of this happens next week. At the main event, going into the Key Arena, and as we were discussing, I mean, that the first match of the winners bracket determines whether you get 6 figures or another 0 added behind, getting $1 million and a little bit extra for your pocket change. That's a big deal.
$150,000 of pocket change.
I mean, once you win $1 million, I feel like I haven't been there yet, but I'll let you guys know if I ever achieve that status. I'll let you guys know how it feels. That's really exciting. What do you expect at the Key Arena, right? We've had several TIs in the past. You guys have been there in the past. But to be there where that's actually the difference you see in the very first round of matches, that's going to be pretty exciting. Of course, nervous for the players, but absolutely crazy for the audience and for the casters who are casting those matches.
Yeah, well, it's like the atmosphere in the arena in general. I think it's going to be even crazier than last year. Supposedly the setup this year is going to be amazing.
And all 16 teams will be there.
All 16 teams will be there.
That is also true.
And yeah, the matches just mean more. I don't think, if you're a player going into the series, I think a very healthy approach is to not think, or maybe it's inevitable, at least for some teams, that you think a lot about the money in the first matchup. If you get to the winners bracket, a team like Complexity, who wants to prove everyone wrong, at the same time, they might have had it in the back of their minds going into this that they're definitely not one of their favorites. They said they're the underdogs as well going into the tournament. They've been doing great. It's probably hard for them to put it in the back of their minds. But once you're in that top 6, I think, like, when the money is so big, it's not really about the money anymore. Like, you're playing for the sake of the competition and for pushing yourself as far as you can and getting the best possible result. Like, of course it's incredible winning the whole thing, right? But it's already so much money when you're in the top 6 that's definitely the biggest step. It's it's basically secured your entire year, right?
That is,
if you get a top 6 placement. Then everything else the whole year, anything that's happened doesn't really matter.
Majors.
So.
You never know.
Well,
I mean, that could help secure your spot for that next major to get that auto invite.
That's
very true.
And I can't
That's a
help but
good
just
point.
think the reason why everyone's just going to be so into it is, we're there to celebrate this game.
Yeah,
and see how
exactly.
big it's gotten, and you can see it just win that first match. That was TI 1 and 2, that first best of 3 where they're playing for that $1 million.
I think the important thing is more so than for the players, for the audience, just to see that that's where we are now, and that's the gravity, but also the excitement of those matches, and that's where TI is. And TI 5, that's how just big every match is, and that's how great every team is here. But as we were chatting away, we are now in the draft for Game 1 between CDEC and EG. So again, pretty important match for EG. They want to take at least one map to make sure they stay on the top side of the upper bracket.
Look what aggressive God.
It's a good.
I'm
perspective
surprised.
on Naga.
I was really confident going into this that would be EG's targeted ban this team, and they didn't.
Maybe they have that ace, man. Maybe they are baiting it out so they have the answer for Gyro.
I don't know what that is.
We've talked a lot about EG preparing for CDEC, but we haven't talked too much about the opposite side, playing from CDEC, just because we're a little bit more unfamiliar with CDEC. But as always versus Evil Geniuses, I think the Naga Siren ban is almost imperative. And if you don't have first pick, then Leshrek's a fine ban. But CDEC has first pick.
They passed on Shadow Fiend as well. Is it just something that Sumail doesn't want to really do? And Queen of Pain.
It's just they like their options open. Shadow Fiend is strong, but he's a much different flavor than a lot of the common mids. Like, remember when this time last year, EG actually ran DK a lot in the mid lane and actually just pushed very, very early,
Razor
which is
too, yeah.
unusual for their strategy now, but a year ago it was super common, and they actually won games in 20-25 minutes. Times have changed, but DK is still a very viable pick, and I think Shadow Fiend somewhat limits